Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of McCandless Town Council meeting for July 26th. First up, I would like to have Council Member David Smith do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you please stand?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we have the announcements. The only announcement I have for tonight is our night out that will start on August 3rd from 5 to 8 o'clock. Where the town residents are welcome to come out, meet our police officer, learn about the department, and eat food and get to see your neighbors. At this time, I would like to call for a motion to make Council Member David Smith President Pro Tem for the meeting tonight.
Madam Vice President,
Yes.
I move to appoint Councilmember Smith President Pro Tem for purposes of chairing tonight's meeting of Town Council.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Councilmember Schweiger. We're going to go down. I just wanted to add to your announcement. We found out today that Lowe's is donating 2 grills for the National Night Out. One to use to prepare food and one to put into the raffle. So thanks, Lowe's. Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing on the rezoning request on the Marwa property. So this is a public hearing. It's not a question and answer. We're going to have somebody come up to do the presentation. We'll have discussion from council, and then we'll have public comment. We'll start with people in the room, and then we'll move to Zoom. Everybody gets 5 minutes, but try to be as judicious as you can, but everybody can have 5 minutes to speak. So to start, sorry, we have a couple of house cleaning things.
Just a couple of housekeeping items for you. We received about 40 emails from residents of the area. All of those emails will be included and made part of this public hearing record. So the comments that were made in the emails have been received by council, and they will be part of the permanent record of this hearing. So there's no need for you to reiterate things that you've already said. You can expand upon that or be satisfied with what you wrote, but in any case, they are part of the public record. For those people who are on Zoom, please include your name and address and just note that you want to speak about the rezoning, and then we will get to you when we're able, or once the room has spoken. And the last thing that I wanted to make everybody aware of is that the council will not be taking a vote this evening. The council will take into consideration all of the comments made and then take a vote at a meeting coming up in
I believe
August.
we have the August 23rd meeting advertised.
Is it the, okay, August 23rd?
That's the Monday, right?
Originally, I thought it was going to be the 9th, but it will be the 23rd.
Okay, and one last housekeeping thing. So this is for the public hearing. After that, we'll have public comments on any other matters that are on the agenda. So this part is just for the public hearing. And then after that, we'll take public comment on any other issue that's on the agenda. So thank you. We have a reporter, correct?
Well, we have someone here to make a presentation for the.
Mike Wetzel with Victor Wetzel Associates. So we're here tonight once again for the rezoning for the Marwa property from R2 to R3. This is in relationship to providing townhomes to allow this on the Marwa property. And what we'd like to be able to do is show you in regard to our presentation here tonight, not only the conceptual site plan in regard to the rezoning, which is a requirement of the town of McCandless, but also review some of the existing conditions around the site. But really, I'm here tonight representing Northwest Land Company in regard to their application. Also have Josh Hato from Wooster and Associates will be here tonight. Also talk about some of the traffic slides that we have here tonight. So with that, we'd like to begin our presentation for the rezoning of the Marwa property from R2 to R3. So as you see on the screen, this is the town of McCandless zoning map that's there. The property has frontage along Perry Highway. We also have off to the left-hand side, Sarver Lane. Above the site that's outlined in red is Oak Ridge Drive. And then really at the far right of the plan is Forest View Avenue. The surrounding zoning district is R2 with some other individual C1, C7, and R3s located within the site area within the plan.
Just tell me next slide, one to flip.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we look at the aerial existing condition of the site, once again, the site is outlined in red and it is 15.8 acres in size. The site frontage, once again, is located on Perry Highway. And there's really about 1,400 lineal feet of frontage along Perry Highway within the site. The site right now is really kind of undeveloped. There is an old existing single family home, but nobody lives on it in regard to the site. So there's a mixture of open fields and wood areas within the site. And once again, off to the left-hand side is a Sarver Lane. To the right where we have the single family, we have the Oak Ridge Drive, as well as on the far right, we have the Forest View Avenue. Also across the street in regard to the property, we have a lot of different mixed uses associated with the site. Started off to the left, you have an office building, you have a self-storage area. You also then have the North Hills Lodge located directly across the street. Down to our south is an existing electrical substation. And then really kind of off to the top of the screen, some larger single family homes. And then you get into some of the existing single family homes that are really located on Oak Ridge Drive within the plan. So as you can really see that there's really no other access associated with the site except for Perry Highway. Along Perry Highway, there is a Jersey barrier along its entire frontage. So the only true access into the site is really a right in, right out, located at the far right-hand side of the screen. Next slide, please. So when we look at the topographic portion of the site, once again, looking at the right-hand side, which is really the high side of Route 19 that has an elevation of 1160. And as you drive down Perry Highway, it's about 100 foot of elevation change along that 1,400 feet of frontage area. Also topo within the site, you rise up to the site. There are kind of two high points. You have the 1180 and the 1172. You have a saddle that takes place between the two high points. Then the site does fall in relationship to Perry Highway down to the elevation 1110. And then you kind of have a high shelf that occurs there right now, which drops about 40 feet of elevation down to the 1170 contour. Through these contour lines you have there's really no access into the site that you can get off of Sarver Lane just because of the existing topography. So the only really true access is along Perry Highway. Next slide, please. Now, as I said, we're looking to rezone the property from R2 to R3 to allow townhome development within this area. 86 proposed townhomes. The type of townhome that we'd like to be able to use is what's called the Wexford townhome through here. It'll be a 3-story townhome with a 2-car garage down at the base of it. The main living area will be on the first floor, and then the sleeping areas and the bedrooms at the top. Will be a mixture in regard to the type of townhome that will have some that are going to have the front entry type of garage like you see here, but we'll also have several townhomes that will have a rear entry garage. So those rear entry garages will have a private drive in the back of the building. So you'll have more of a streetscape front where the front of the door will face the street and only be 2 stories in height. And then you have more of the walkout garage area. So this would be the type of townhome that we would like to be able to use if the property is rezoned. Next slide. Now, in regard to the rezoning plan that we have in front of you, the rezoning from R2 to R3 is requested to allow, as I mentioned, 86 townhomes. This rezoning follows the town's planning practice of locating more intensive land uses along Route 19. You really have a lot of commercial that takes place along Route 19, and the multifamily use that we're proposing here tonight is consistent with the intensive traffic condition that occurs on Perry Highway. And really, the purpose of the R3 zoning district is to provide areas for townhomes and garden apartments. And with this, the allowable density under the R3 for this particular site would be 158 townhomes. We're only proposing 86 within the plan. And with the R3 zoning, there is a requirement of a 100-foot perimeter setback anywhere located along the R2 area. So within the top and on the right and the left-hand sides of our plan, there is a requirement for a 100-foot perimeter building setback that would take place. If the rezoning is granted, we would look to seeing about a variance with the zoning hearing board to allow a 75-foot front yard setback along the Perry Highway area. That's more in relationship to, and it wouldn't be for all buildings, it would only be for a few buildings. That's really because Perry Highway is a 90-foot road right away as it is right now. And then you already have the kind of different types of uses that occur between the personal storage, the lodge that are well over, almost 200 feet away from any of the proposed structures. But that's something we would try to look to entertain with the zoning hearing board if the rezoning does occur. Now, in regard to the site plan, rezoning plan that we have here, we would have on the right-hand side of the screen, access into the site would be a right-in, right-out only, once again, because the Jersey Barrier area that occur. Off on the right-hand side of the access road would be a deceleration lane that would occur into the plan. Within the plan itself, there would be a 50-foot road right of way, but the road right of way and the road itself would be private, but the road would be built to Town of McCandless standards within the plan. With that, we would have sidewalks on both sides, located on both streets, as well as I said, sidewalks on both sides of the street associated with it. So when you come in, you turn left, we would have on-street parking along the spine road that's heading from right to left, on-street parking with CMU. You'd be able to have a oversized turnaround at the end, and then we'd have 3 kind of private courts that would take place where the townhomes would also face. Down in the lower part of the site, that's where we're having the low side garage access. We would have its own separate driveway that access the garages for those units that really face along Perry Highway. 2 proposed stormwater detention facilities, one in the upper portion of the site, a little bit smaller one, and then on the far left-hand side at the intersection with Perry Highway and Sarver Lane would be the second stormwater detention facility in the site. The areas in green, the dark green represents existing trees that would remain within the plan. So there'll be existing buffers as well as proposed buffers that would be required within the plan. So under this rezoning plan, we're looking to have 86 proposed townhomes. Slide, please. So when we look at the R3 zoning that occurs, there's really no hard, true districts in regard to the R3 that takes place within the site. This is the Town of McCandless zoning map. And really all the red circles within the plan are locations where R3 zoning takes place. Really, as I said, no true big block areas. Most of the R3 zoning areas take in regard to infills within the R2 zoning district. So you can see how widespread the R3 zoning that exists today is located within the town. So we're really, once again, looking something very similar in regard to the rezoning request that we're adding to that kind of individual rezoning requests like it occurs throughout the rest of the town. Next slide, please. So once again, we look a little bit at the neighborhood plan through this area. We kind of see a little bit more of the neighborhood and how the site plan works with the frontage along Perry Highway, the single family homes to the right and to the north, to the upper right hand corner, as well as the single family lots that are larger lots taken off to the left hand side. When we look at the plan, the closest units are located really closer to the Oak Ridge Drive units within existing single family homes. And if we go to the next slide. In that area, the closest homes along Oak Ridge Drive is anywhere between 175 feet to 185 feet to 215 feet in regard to that distance. Once again, we have the 100-foot perimeter buffer that would be required under the R3 zoning requirement. So we have quite a bit of distance through there, as well as some existing trees, but also as a requirement, there would be any additional buffer yard plantings that would be supplied within the development area. Next slide. So next, I'd like to bring up Josh Haydu from Wooster Associates to kind of talk about some of the traffic patterns and how access would occur within the site. This was something that was brought up under the Planning Commission review, and you usually don't talk too much in detail of it during the rezoning, but we felt there would be a good scenario to talk about the traffic conditions and access into the site.
Thanks, Michael. Josh Hato with David Worcester and Associates. You go ahead and go to the next slide. So as Mike indicated, the traffic component of this project was kicked off in February with a scoping meeting with PennDOT. But until the developer gets through the rezoning, we have not completed the full traffic study. But in light of feedback that was brought up the last Planning Commission meeting, I was asked to come here and present a little bit of information to hopefully answer some questions that some citizens and perhaps the council has. Primarily with, as Mike said, access to the development is a single point along the western side of Route 19, which is divided with the Jersey barrier. So you will only be able to make right turns into and right turns out of the development directly. So the question is, if you're coming from the south, how do you get into the site? And how do you get out of the site if you want to eventually go north on Route 19? So what we did is we created what's called a gravity model. We took employment and business points within a 45-minute drive time just to get some idea of where we might expect residents to be going from or coming to on a daily basis. Of course, it's, obviously this can change depending on who exactly moves into this development, but it gives us a pretty good indication of, how many people are coming from the city, coming from out towards the airport, coming from Wexford, Monroeville, what have you. So based on this information, we plotted those routes to the site. You could go to the next slide, please. So all traffic leaving the development is going to be able to make a right turn directly out onto Route 19. And we expect that anyone who wants to, turn around and go north will be able to do so on state routes, either go down to the Target or go down to the Perry Highway intersection with Pine Creek Road, turn around there and head back north. So all the traffic exiting development will make a right turn, will not have to cut through any neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Now this represents all the traffic that is returning to the development from people's jobs, from places of employment, businesses, schools, etc. So you can see the majority is going to be coming from the south, from the McKnight Road corridor, from the city, 20% more or less from the west. So that captures people that are on 79, 279. That it's quicker to come through that way rather than go up 19 or McKnight Road. And then 12% from the north captures those coming from the Wexford area or even the Turnpike coming from Monroeville. Next slide, please. So what we've done in these next couple of slides is pointed out exactly how many trips. We calculated the trip generation of this development, these 86 homes, how many peak hour trips they will generate in the morning and the afternoon. And we've showed how those will be routed into the site through various, adjacent neighborhood roadways. So again, as I mentioned, anyone coming from the north isn't going to have to cut through any neighborhoods because they can have access directly into the development. Next slide, please. Those coming from the south, which constitutes the largest percentage of residents, we figure about 65, 70%. People will most likely travel north on 19, make a left onto Longview, loop around Forest View, back out onto 19 and make a right into the development. So the trips associated with that movement are 6 trips during the morning peak hour and 22 trips during the evening peak hour. That's 7 to 9 or 4 to 6 a.m. p.m. respectively. Next slide, please. And then finally, these are the people that will be coming in from the west. Most likely they would use Oak Ridge to get up to Forest View to make a right onto Route 19. And again, this was the 20%. So that's 2 a.m. trips and 7 p.m. trips. Next slide, please. This slide shows the total amount of peak hour trips expected, on these, neighborhood roads and adjacent neighborhoods, the additional traffic that they might be expected to experience as a result of this proposed development. So Oak Ridge is 2 and 7 trips, Longview 6 and 22, and then Forest View, because it captures both of those movements, would be 8 trips in the morning, 29 trips in the afternoon. And that 29 trips in the afternoon equates to about 1 trip every 2 minutes or so. So really not talking about a whole lot of additional traffic. Excellent. And I'm certainly available for any questions, but I'll turn it back over to Mike to finish his presentation.
Thank you, Josh. So as we wrap up our rezoning request through here, we wanted to give a summary in regard to our presentation. Once again, this is a neighborhood of a lot of different types of mixed uses, anywhere between single family to office to industrial type of uses with the storage facility. So quite a bit of different types of uses associated along Perry Highway. Next slide. The property only has access on Route 19. So really, there's only one access point within the site. As we showed you with the topo map, Sarver Lane is not an option in regard to providing access because of the existing slopes that takes place. Next slide. The Route 19 corridor is an area of higher intensity zoning. So as we talked about, a lot of the zoning that does occur within the corridor is commercial. And so we're looking to try to keep more of a higher intensity uses along the Perry Highway corridor. Next slide. McCandless has traditionally scattered its R3 usually within the R2 neighborhoods, as we kind of showed with the township zoning map. This is not an unusual situation to ask for an R3 zoning within the R2 district, especially along the major corridors that take place within the town. And McCandless's 100-foot R3 setback ensures buffering between the single family and the multifamily. Once again, that 100 feet plus the setbacks that they have, as well as the existing and proposed screening requirements that would take place for an R3 PRD, we'd be adding a good bit of buffering associated with the plan. So those are really our summary in regard to the plan.
Were you ready?
No,
for the
that's
next one?
fine. No, that's fine. Go to the next slide. Thank you. And once again, this is our rezoning request plan in regard to providing a change in the existing R2 zoning for 15.8 acres from R2 to R3 for the proposed Marwa property. Glad to answer any questions that the board might have, as well as listen to comments from the public.
Okay, so first we'll start with questions from the board. Councilmember Woods, I see your hand.
I have a question / comment. The report that was generated on April 9th Was that based on the data collected back in February and March? The speed and volume.
Correct. There was a preliminary study that was presented on April 9th.
Okay. Then for the record, for council's purposes, on February 23rd, the school was in hybrid model.
Okay.
So on that date, there was probably half of the students leaving the school.
Okay.
On Wednesday, they were still in hybrid model on the 24th, and nobody was at school that day. So the traffic study from 7 a.m. I think absolutely does not reflect what's actually happening there on a normal school day. March 1st, they would have been back. Half to 3/4 of the students would have been back in school that day. So just so that we have an understanding of the baseline of the numbers that they're collecting here, I don't think it truly reflects what it's going to look like on a normal school day.
The primary purpose of this preliminary study was to identify the speeds. One of the concerns raised during the scoping meeting by PennDOT and the town was, the need for a deceleration lane coming down Route 19, which the developer is committed to implementing. So some of the data that we needed to collect in order to determine whether that lane would be necessary were the speeds and the volumes coming down the hill. So if the volumes are even higher than they were on that day, or speeds higher, then.
Especially with the subset of people that we're talking about driving all the
Right.
time.
But even with that limited data, that we did demonstrate that turn lane, that deceleration lane is necessary.
Yeah,
and the
I don't know
developer is
enough
committed.
about it to understand, but I wonder if the volume, at what point does it change over to the deceleration lane isn't even enough? Like, is there some point when the volume and the speed is so high that it requires something bigger, like a traffic light?
No, not
Okay.
really, no. Well, one thing that could be affected would be the length of that turn lane.
Okay.
So that's something that we would revisit at a later time. When school is back in and things go back to normal this coming year, to redo those volumes. Although I suspect that the speeds have been generally higher during the pandemic, but again, we would confirm that at the same time and use the more conservative of the two.
Correspondence, is that your hand up or?
Well, as long as you called on me. I just want to say, I also, I share the concerns that Councilmember Woods pointed out. I'm also concerned about, I'm not sure how you can fix this, because what you have presented is a legal way to access the site. But as I checked myself, I saw for myself, and I went on Google Maps and other map systems, it shows a U-turn at Longview.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it's and your own study says it's clearly inadequate for U-turns. But I'm just saying, I think that's a big traffic concern for me, knowing that people are doing it. I've seen them do it, and that all our GPS systems are telling us to do it. So, and then also, of course, you did point out the deficiency in the site view, site distance, looking from Forest View. I'm not sure that, I don't think you're ever going to get the site distance that you would like to get for safety with the speeds that you've documented in your report. With the site distance that's available, but those are my comments on the traffic study. I'm very concerned about this development and its impact on the neighborhood as well.
I'm sorry, did you want to? I thought you were about to say something.
Just briefly, with regard to the U-turn, we've identified, because we knew that cut through traffic through the neighborhoods would be a concern. So we specifically looked at that and determined that no, it is not safe, or we will not recommend that those U-turns be made. We will work on that with the department, for the department to potentially put up some no U-turn signs. But we certainly cannot recommend that. So although we hate to put traffic through neighborhoods and affect other neighbors and residents, it's the appropriate thing to do. And the site distance as well. Again, it's a concern that that we're aware of. We'll work with the department during the, the continuance of this study and the permitting to address that as much as possible.
I had a few questions myself, but as I ask them, if anybody else on council wants to ask a question, I'm happy to break them up. But my first question is, when you broke down the times, the AM and PM, what time frames are those AM and PM? Like what hours of the day?
Those just represent the two busiest hours of commuter traffic between 7 to 9 and 4 to 6. So really, we're just taking whatever the busiest time on Route 19 happens to be, and then, the most amount of traffic that those 86 units can generate in an hour, and superimposing them on top of one another, whether or not they actually occur at the same time or not. Does that make any sense? So we're taking the busiest time of adjacent street traffic, and then the busiest time of people entering and exiting the new units, and superimposing those on top of one another. I don't know, when we go back and recollect data, it may occur at different times. It may be 7:15 to 8:15, 8:30 to 9:30. But
Right.
we're taking the most conservative approach by assuming that those two things happen at the same time.
Okay. And then, so looking at the numbers, and maybe you can explain this better for me. The numbers added up to 33 total return trips, but there's 86 units in the plan. So to me, that doesn't make sense. Can you explain either where that number comes from or the methodology by which that number comes about? Like, how did you come up with 33 return trips? I'm also concerned about the AM trips because of school for the reasons that Councilmember Woods pointed out. But let's start either generally with both of them or specifically with PM.
That comes out of that's a good question. It comes out of a national publication used by PennDOT for a study. It's also called out in the town's ordinance. It's called ITE. So those rates based on the type of unit, the number of units, say, during its peak hour of generation, it's going to have this many people exiting and this many people returning.
And that's based on those numbers you were just talking about. And those numbers were derived from that window. What was it, February to March, for data collected in February to March?
Correct. The numbers of trips entering and exiting the development, those would stay consistent. The actual counts that we obtained on Route 19, those could change even day to day, depending on what day we collect data.
Okay.
But 86 townhomes generate 33 vehicles exiting, and again, that's just during a single hour. So if you were to look at it over the course of 4 hours, you might see 86 or more people leaving. But
okay, so that 33 is for a single hour, and so the next hour might be 28. It's basically the peak hour, but that's not the total for that window. That's for the peak hour.
For a single hour, yes.
Okay. And I still have a couple more questions, but I don't want to dominate. So does any other council members? Councilmember Cluner?
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. I'm curious if the traffic studies included the impact of larger vehicles on these streets. And this would include school buses, any emergency vehicles, delivery trucks, and not even to mention the construction trucks that would be required to develop this property. Does it make sense for the school buses to follow that route that is proposed onto Longview?
At this time, again, the traffic study that was scoped with PennDOT has not been conducted. The preliminary analysis that was done in April was done only to help the developer make a determination as to whether or not that deceleration lane would be necessary. So at that point, we were only interested really in speeds and relative volumes coming down 19. So those are all items that would be addressed when the full study is completed. But we haven't been authorized to conduct that study until we've gone through the rezoning process.
I am in no way speaking on behalf of council, but just from my own personal observations. we've had a lot of citizen concern about the traffic and the traffic that'll be coming through the neighborhood, the turn. To me personally, it seems like putting the cart before the horse to say we have to do the rezoning first and then the traffic study. To me, the traffic study needs to come first so we can tell what that traffic impact will be. Again, that's my personal view. Anybody is open to share their views on it, but that's my personal view, is to say the rezoning comes first and then we'll do a full traffic study. To me, it's got to be the other way around. Any other, I still have one or two questions, I think. But any other questions from council members before I start dominating again? Okay, next question. This might even more be for you, RJ, or you, Mr. Corbel. So the development is 86 units, but R3 zoning would allow on this property up to 153. If the property is rezoned, what's to prevent a future development from increasing from the 86 in this plan to 153?
So I can field that first, unless Steve, you need to jump in or anything. So the calculation for density permitted, essentially, I'm assuming that it was done basically off of the total, like the gross acres between these three lots, which is a little under 16. I believe the zoning code permits up to 10 townhome units, I want to say, per acre of net lot area. There's a complex calculation that, unless anybody so desires, I will spare you the math on. But essentially, this concept plan, it's typically at a rezoning hearing, there's not full engineered plans, which means there hasn't been a full zoning review. So there are a couple things like drive aisle width, steep slope, of which this site certainly has some, that you would subtract, I think, I want to say about half of those areas. So ultimately, the total permitted density might be lower than that straight gross lot acreage calculation. I don't think that it would lower it below 86 townhomes. That seems to be, a pretty safe calculation that there's some cushion for that. That said, unless, the town attorney has anything to add, typically when you approve a rezoning, any of the permitted uses for that zone are ultimately on the table when the actual land development application comes through. There's not really a way to legally bind a developer to a concept plan at a rezoning, because the developer might not necessarily be the person to ultimately use that property at the end of the day, however many years, in the future that would be.
Okay, so if there's not a zoning 2.5 that exists, it would limit it to 90. Once you rezone to R3, then you're allowing up to whatever the maximum that R3 allows.
Correct. And that would be, again, for any of the uses that are on the table, which in R3 also include garden apartments. I don't know if there's any sort of conditional approval that could be put on beyond that. If the town attorney could advise, in my knowledge, there typically isn't. It's a conceptual plan for the rezoning. And once it's changed to the new district, the rules of that district apply to anybody who wished to develop it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corbel?
I concur.
Okay. Okay, so last call from council. If there's any other comments, questions to say before we move to the public comment portion. Okay, let's go to public comment portion. So, Bob, logistically, how are we going to do this?
Okay, what we'll want to do, raise your hand and then come to the podium. State your name and address. And again, for those of you who may have come in after my announcement, we will be making about the 40 emails that we received part of the permanent record of this hearing. So we will take all of that information under advisement and make it part of the record.
3 quick notes before you start. Sorry. The first is, I mentioned earlier, everybody's limited to 5 minutes, and there is a timer over there. Unfortunately, I will have to just cut people off at the 5 minutes. You can see there's a lot of folks here. Second point is we will do the in-person public comments first. Then we'll move to whoever is signed up to do public comments for the public hearing through Zoom. And then I will come back for a last call. You can only speak once during the public hearing, by the way. And the third point I have already forgotten, so it must not have been important. So, my apologies, folks. This is the first time I've done this, so I'm fumbling through it a little bit here. With that, when you do come up to give public comment, please give your name and address. Same thing for the people signing up on Zoom. And then once you come up and start, we'll start the 5-minute timer. And I would ask that if you can do it in less than 5 minutes, please try to do so, but you are entitled to have your 5 minutes.
Just one last request, if we didn't mention already, please spell your name if it is not the most obvious way possible to spell it like it sounds.
No.
No, we will say your name and address first, and then once you spell your name and address, then John, you can start the timer after. That way, you folks with the long last names that have to spell them out, it's not held against you. All right, go ahead, sir.
I'll go. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. My name is Brian Wright, WRIGHT, and I live at 10061 Oak Ridge Drive.
Okay, and Mr. Wright has requested that I put something up on the screen share while he gives his comment. So I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
So thank you for your time and allowing me to comment this evening. And for full disclosure, I do live on a property that's directly adjacent to the proposed townhome. So, myself and my family do have some personal concerns that, although I believe to be valid, in my opinion, don't rise to the level of what the primary issue I think at hand with this proposal might be, and that's safety. So as you may or may not know, 15 years ago, this same landowner and consulting company applied to rezone this property to R6 with a plan to construct 55 two-story garden apartments or garden homes. And that proposal was almost unanimously voted down by the town council. Immediately after that, they proposed a neighborhood of 27 single-family homes, still R2. So that was put forward, and that was ultimately approved based on a set of contingencies. So today, the proposal to rezone to R3 with a plan for 86 three-story townhomes is more than 3 times or a 218% increase in the number of units and families versus what that land theoretically could accommodate under the current zoning based on the R2 proposal they put forward 15 years ago. So I'm sure that there's many reasons why the neighboring residents might oppose this rezoning, whether it be property values, water runoff, noise, light pollution, environmental concerns, or a number of others, for all of which there might be varying levels of agreement or disagreement within town council. However, it seems that resident safety is really the one issue where it's, in my opinion, very difficult to make any argument in favor of this proposal. Any change in the zoning that would effectively permit more units and families to occupy this space is inherently a significantly less safe situation, given the dangerous nature of the stretch of roadway, which has already been discussed tonight. And that particular safety issue is relevant to really any McCandless resident that travels that section of Route 19, not just these neighborhoods. It's important to note that the safety issue is in no way confined to those traveling on this section of Route 19 and those 4 to 5 properties on Route 19 immediately to the north of the property. Because of that access issue that was discussed, only being able to enter as a right turn off of 19 South, the 35 families on Longview, Hillcrest, and Forest View, as well as the 85 families in the Oak Ridge neighborhood, will all experience increased traffic through the streets of those neighborhoods. I should mention Hillcrest, Longview, and Forest View do not have sidewalks. So residents there are bicycling, having kids, they're walking on the sides of the street, or when there's leaves or snow on the ground, maybe not so close to the sides of the street. So if you can refer to the map that I provided, the pink, green, and black lines all represent the traffic direction to this proposed development based on various applications for directions like Waze, Apple, and Google Maps. Just to orient that, at the top, that green spot is the football field at North Allegheny. Coming from the west is the black line. And then I think the developer suggested 68% coming from the south and another 20. So 88% of the traffic is going to impact these neighborhoods. So the bottom line is that anyone attempting to enter the proposed development from most points south, and that includes really anywhere from the Pine Creek Walgreens all the way down McKnight Road and 279 to downtown Pittsburgh, the primary means of access will be the routes on this map, all of which affect those 35 Longview, Hillcrest, and Forest View families, and 2 of the 3 routes affecting the 85 Oak Ridge families. So I know the developer can claim or claims that this type of zoning change is consistent with what other parcels in the canvas that border busier sections of roadway have seen. But I would challenge that claim in that these other parcels are not bordering what many consider to be the most dangerous section of roadway in the township, nor does the development of these other parcels so dramatically affect the increase in traffic in the bordering residential neighborhoods. You can't say that about the storage facility or the lodge on the other side of 19. Those are accessed via, I'm not sure the correct terminology, but a road with a double yellow line, not going through, a neighborhood with sidewalks. So in conclusion, I noticed on the McCandless website, the draft text of the proposed ordinance, and in part it reads as follows, quote, the town council of the town of McCandless has determined that approval of the rezoning request will further the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town, end quote. And my hope is that the safety concerns and the factual information presented this evening will leave absolutely no doubt that any rezoning of this parcel that would allow over 3 times the number of families to live in this space versus what the current zoning may allow would have exactly the opposite effect of furthering the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of McCandless. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have a public comment? You, sir?
Bring up the distance on the houses from.
Yeah, sorry. So let's see what slide. Hang on. Are you looking for?
The distance between their property and what they said Oakview.
So was it the zoomed in buffer yard that you're looking for? Okay, let's try this one and see if it's what you're thinking of.
Distance of 175 feet.
Hang on.
That was supposed to be the closest one. My name's Mike Sattler, Sattler. I live at 10073 Perry Highway, right next door.
Go ahead.
Okay. What I want to show here is he says this 175 feet is the closest. This is my house right here. Okay. So
which one are you pointing at?
right above separation. You see the.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, well, that's my garage in the back, but that's my house right here. Can you just, yeah, right there. That's gotta be closer than 175 feet.
The house directly to the north, just.
Yeah.
Just so
like
the
I said,
record
right
clear.
there. And I assume that the acceleration lane will take part of my front yard too, right?
Acceleration lane would be constructed within the road.
Okay, well, I feel my house is closer than 175 feet. I don't even know why I'm not even involved in that. But I live right next door.
That's something to get at.
Well, that should have been added now, I think. Well, that's all I got to say. I mean, I'm closer than that, and I know water was a problem. I don't know where they're gonna get the water from. And we're all, them 5 houses up from there, we're all on well water. So if there's any kind of construction going on, we went through this 15 years ago. Is there gonna be a problem with the well? Are they gonna compensate? Nothing was discussed here. I understand it, but that's all I gotta say. I mean, I know I'm closer than 155.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm basically just calling on the first hand that I see, so shoot them up quick if you want to make one.
Hi, my name is Lee Massey, Massey. I live at 10083 Perry Highway. Just a couple points I wanted to make. Number one, I'm one of 4 residents whose driveway actually turns off of Perry Highway. So we live this day in and day out. Only 4 of us right now. We're going to add another 86 families that have to accelerate and decelerate to get into that subdivision. I don't know how many of you have spent any time there and watched the speed the cars go down that hill. McCandless Police does everything they can to protect it, but people fly down there. There is so much traffic, and this is such a critical safety problem that I don't see how we can allow 86 more families to turn in and out of there. Even with an acceleration, deceleration, you got to get out into the traffic, no matter what you're doing. And those trying to get multiple driveways along there, as well as the subdivision, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And I think we're asking for something really bad. Thank you.
Folks, I'm going to make a quick request, and I appreciate everybody showing up and the enthusiasm, but if we could hold off on the applause so that we can give everybody a chance to speak who wants to speak. No offense, I just want to make sure that everybody who has a comment gets their chance to say it. Yes, sir. And thank you all for showing up, by the way. I did not say that. This is an incredible turnout. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Ibrahim Yusel, IBRAHIMYUCEL. I live at 37 Longview Avenue. And the traffic analysis presentation that was given today did not alleviate one of the concerns that I uniquely have as living on Longview Avenue. So 37 Longview is the first house that you see when you make a right onto that street. And every day that I've been working from home the past 18 months, there's been maybe 3 or 4 people who'll make a U-turn either off of my driveway or the driveway right across from my house. Since 2003, my mailbox has been hit twice, and I've had to replace them at my own cost because of either Amazon independent contractors, FedEx, UPS, Levin Furniture, whatever it is. That's something that was not discussed here. There was a point discussed about legal turns made out of Longview into Forest View and then the right-hand turn. But illegal U-turns, I mean, human nature, people are going to try to save time, and I will be disproportionately affected alongside my other neighbors that live right off that Perry Highway Longview area. So that's another consideration to make. It's not just the legal turns for the 70% of people coming up from Route 19, but the disproportionate impact of U-turns that will likely occur not from those residents alone, but also from Amazon, FedEx, construction vehicles, whatever it may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? I see a hand back there. I can't see the face.
Hi, I'm Sherry McCaskey. I'm at 65 Forest View Avenue. I just have a quick request and then a comment of a concern. So the request is I additionally have a concern over that deceleration lane. And the request I have for council is to maybe provide a map of what that really does look like. Because I really don't know where they're getting the real estate for that. So I would respectfully ask for that in our minutes. And the other comment I had on safety was, I just want to remind everyone that during the fall season, Longview and Forest View are definitely one lane because of leaf collection. And most of the plan is one lane as well. So I just wanted to leave you with that.
Could you just spell your name?
I'm sorry, McCaskey, MCCASKEY.
Thank you.
I'm Dale Bertucci. It's BERTUCCI. I live at 170 Timbara Court. Couple questions. So R3, does that include multifamily use, potentially apartment homes?
For public comment, it's really not a question and answer.
Got it. I assume it does. My understanding of R3 is that it would potentially. So this development is a proposal, but it could potentially include multifamily homes. The other question is, not question, statement is that data analysis was collected during the pandemic. So the data is frankly garbage. It's not accurate to real world living, right? 90% of people are home, schools weren't in session. So frankly, there needs to be a new study done. And thirdly, you're asking all the residents of our community to change from all our access roads are frankly neighborhood access roads. Now you're asking us to turn it into a throughway. Everybody coming off Pine Creek will access it, and now you're turning Forest View and Longview into a throughway, is essentially what it is. So, and turning out to everybody's point, you take your life in your own hands coming off of Longview, Forest View, or any of those driveways, and turning right onto the super highway, as we call it, right? Anybody that lives in that area knows it's a super highway. So now you're going to ask delivery drivers, school buses, everybody else to do the same thing. There needs to be a light at the very least. So that's all.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name's Lori Root, R-O-O-T. I live at 10039 Oak Ridge Drive, which is the corner of Oak Ridge and Hillcrest. So this kind of affects me on all of the different angles, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate what they were saying about the safety issues. First off, those streets are walked all the time, and it's already been said that there are no sidewalks once you hit the end of my property, Longview, Hillcrest, Forest View. There's no sidewalks. People are walking them. They're in the middle of the road because there is no sidewalks. Typically, people are walking with more than one person with pets, whatever. So there's that issue. But I also wanted to say, during the winter months, we're not high priority for getting the snow truck on our road. And there's been many a days where the school buses stop and have to wait for the district to send a little salt truck to clear the road. So if you're putting more traffic through these roads into the winter months where, I don't know, if you haven't driven Forest View, Longview with the proposed turnaround, they're steep. Like my family has rules. We don't come out that way ever. We don't come out the top of that neighborhood ever because it's dangerous. And during the winter when there's snow on the ground, we don't come in that way because the risk of sliding backwards onto 19 is there. And the risk of sliding down Longview into the guardrail is there. It's a lot steeper than you realize. And I just think that, again, it just is another added safety issue. I think I'm not putting the panelists down, the township down, the public work people, I think they do a fabulous job. We're a neighborhood. We're not a throughway. We shouldn't be top priority in getting our snow removed. We're fine with that. But again, if you're adding all that traffic, you're putting a lot more risk out there for accidents and people getting injured. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thanks for your time. My name is Gary Lederer, Lederer. I live at 70 Sarver Lane, Wexford 15090. I'd like to double up on everybody's concerns about the access from Longview, especially Forest View. Forest View is tremendously bad. Making the U-turn is not a better option. But yet I have never heard anybody here say anything about the traffic that's going to turn around into businesses or put in flats to try to avoid all those problems. All this traffic that's coming north is going to find that turning around into businesses is easier and safer than everything that's been planned here, everything that's even been mentioned. So talk to the businesses on top of the hill and see what they think about 86 more homes, 2 cars a home. Do the math. That's how many more cars are going to turn around in their parking lots. And second thing I wanted to say is, in your overview that I saw up there, plan your buffer areas. They're showing green space as part of their buffer area. But from what I can see on the view that was up there, they're considering other people's property as their buffer space. Outside of the red line is where their green buffer space was. remove that from the picture when you're talking about your buffer space, because it's not your property. You're not going to control it. You don't even know what the future plans are for the people that own that property. They may clear it. All right, the last option, the last thing I want to talk about was your water retention ponds. People on Sarver Lane live below the property. Water retention, water runoff, water discharge. Where are the discharge pipes? I don't see any discharge pipes planned on there. Where they're going to go, how's it going to be planned, size, operation, and no engineering at all planned for this. And once again, to the people above you with well water problems, our well water below with all this runoff, it's going to be an issue. Is it going to penetrate our wells? Is that going to contaminate anything? That's the only thing I could see that hadn't been touched on so far. But I, once again, would like to double up on everybody's safety concerns by Forest View and Longview and the U-turn. They're all big problems, and nothing I saw here is going to even begin to address those problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jeff Jeserk, and I live at 1090 Oak Ridge Drive. And I thank everyone here. This has been very stimulating. So it made me think of several other issues I thought should be noted. The 2 lanes coming down south from the flats give you 2 options. So you can pick McKnight or you can pick Perry Highway. It's a complicated situation to drive into. People are driving very, very fast. There are awkward lane changes. So bringing a lot of traffic out, and some traffic that may actually want to cross 2 lanes based on what they want to do as they go south, could be really complicated. So I'd like to see that addressed. Also, having lived there almost 20 years, the light at the school at Nash really piles up. It piles up past Longview sometimes in the morning at about 7:15 or 7:10 with cars, because the Nash lot is so large. I bet they can fit like 500, I don't know how many cars, some of you probably know. But so that's a potential issue that should be studied with traffic. And maybe I'm like you, Mr. Smith, I forgot my 3rd point. But thank you. Have a nice night, everyone.
Could you just spell your last name, please?
J-E-Z as in zebra, E-R-C as in cat.
Thank you very much. Rubbing off on people here in a bad way. Okay, more public comments. I saw your hand first, sir. And then I saw another one over here after.
Hi, my name's Rick Bralich, B-R-A-L-I-C-H, and I'm at 10083 Oak Ridge Drive. And the 2 points I wanted to bring up that people have talked about is that turning lane on the Forest View. That's about a 3-car turning lane. You get a pile up, you're going to have traffic backed up on 19. Number 2, if the council approves this, I'm hearing there's nothing to prevent this developer from putting 150 units in here versus 86. So I'd really like you to think about that. There's nothing to prevent them from doing that from what I've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another hand over here.
My name is Mark Naylor, Naylor. I live at 10,007 Oak Ridge Drive. And thank you very much for reading the email that my wife and I sent. It has the details, but there was a comment earlier that I think is worth highlighting and reiterating. And that was the comment about the cart before the horse. This really is the cart before the horse. There's tremendous information that we need from a comprehensive traffic study before there's any discussion about a plan there. So my request is that you completely reject this proposal until there's a comprehensive plan for the traffic. And secondly, what the other gentleman mentioned is detention ponds are designed to hold the water and then discharge over 3 days. So that water has to go somewhere in 3 days. Otherwise, there's standing water for mosquitoes to breed. So I think it'd be very helpful to find out what's the discharge plan. We need those level of details for all the folks that are downstream. Water's going to flow downhill and ruin those properties. And lastly, I'm not sure if it's a request, maybe just to give you a feel for the support of all the people that live in Oak Ridge. Am I allowed to ask anyone who lives in Oak Ridge to please stand so you can see how many people who live in Oak Ridge are here? Okay, so if you live in Oak Ridge, stand up. And, yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not going to count, but let's just say there's a fair number of people here. My rough estimate would be 50 who just stood, but that is absolutely a rough estimate. Okay, more public comments. Okay, I'm going to turn to Zoom. Are you standing up for a comment or? Sure, come on up. Oh, that will come after this. This is a public hearing just on this. There will be public comment for anything else on the agenda after this public hearing closes. So any other public comments on this matter here in the crowd? Okay, I will if, yes, sir.
Diamond, live on Forest View Avenue. I just want to say what some of the other people have already said, but making that right-hand turn off of Forest View Avenue on the 19th, get them people to slow down is a joke. You'll never get the people to slow down. And if someone comes down there in the wintertime, wants to make a right-hand turn, or even in the summer, so many people want to come out of there, you'll have a backup going up that hill. Then people are going to start getting impatient and they're going to try to go out anyway. And you look in the mirror when you do pull out and you got an 18-wheeler right on your bumper. So that's all, just a recipe for somebody to get hurt bad down here.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Helen Stiles. I'm at 10053 Oak Ridge.
Could you spell your name, please?
Stiles.
Thank you.
So I walk this neighborhood every day. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I walk Longview, Forest View, all around Oak Ridge. And this morning, I stood at the edge of Forest View and I recorded the traffic coming down. If anybody wants to see it on my phone, so you can see what it's like when you have to pull out and see what you're facing, then you'd make a decision about what you think. Because I'm telling you, what Gary said is right. You're putting your life in your hands every time you try to make a right out of there. And Gary grew up on that road. And Gary, he's in his 80s. He knows.
For the record, Gary is Mr. Diamond who just spoke.
Sorry, he's my neighbor behind me. I know him well.
No problem.
But he knows. So like I said, if you want to see what it's like pulling out of there, I'm happy to show you on my phone. I stood there for about 15 minutes this morning and recorded that. And this traffic was limited because people are working remotely. But you know what it's like when people are in full force and when school's in session. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more public comments from the room? Okay, I'm going to turn to Zoom now, and I will come back to the room and to council as well, but now we're going to go to Zoom.
There's no, everyone who indicated, just was indicating their residence.
Yes.
Okay, there are no comments via Zoom.
Okay, so no further comments via Zoom. Yes, sir. Yep, I said I'd turn back, so you did not lose your chance.
My name's Jack Casey. That's Jackcasey. I grew up in North Hills and I delivered the North Hills News Record. And I remember knowing about Pine Creek Hill before I was even 10 years old. There was always accidents, truck accidents. Then they built 279 and 79, and that alleviated a lot of those problems. And then our town put in the median, and that's helped dramatically. Then you improved the intersection up by Reichel and Richard Road by McDonald's. That's improved traffic. It flows much better. But more importantly, you improved the intersection down at the bottom of Pine Creek Road. what that did, that allowed all of our neighbors in Oak Ridge, Forest View, Longview, Hillcrest to exit our area safely by going down Pine Creek Road. Before that, if you went down and tried to exit that way, you were backed up for a half a mile and it took forever to get out. So you would bite your teeth and grip your wheel and you would make that right-hand turn and hope that you didn't get hit. Well, that's been alleviated by this council. So I don't know why you would want to go back on a safety improvement by allowing 86, well, and with all due respect to the traffic studies, as my Irish granddaddy would say, that's a bunch of bunk. And the reason I say that is it was taken during COVID when everybody's staying home anyhow. And so it's only 86 people in an hour. If you lived on those roads, it's a 24-hour day. So with all due respect, I don't think those studies have a lot of validity. Finally, Winston Churchill once said, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and speak, but it also takes courage to sit down and listen. We're listening.
Thank you. Okay, now this is a last call for public comment. Anybody else want to comment on the public hearing, the subject matter of the public hearing? Okay, council members, any further comments or anything from council members?
I just would like to make a comment. I represent Ward 2 and I do know your streets. I did make a special trip and I did make all the turns. I went my way through your neighborhoods, which I haven't done in quite a while since my kids got out of school quite a while ago. But I totally agree with you that I think that there is another entrance onto Route 19 is a safety issue just waiting to happen, which already exists and should not be exacerbated further. But mostly I really wanted to say that we have received all of these emails from all of you. And I wanted to actually thank you for sharing. Each and every one of those emails was well thought out, was respectful, was factual. And I know this is an emotional issue for you. This is where you live. This is where your children play. And I just wanted to thank you for being so respectful and for taking the time to share your concerns, because this makes our job easier to understand exactly what our constituents are thinking. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Clunin or Schweiger, just want to make sure I didn't miss you guys online.
I think Councilperson Sponholz said it very well, what I was considering too, and I would like to let everyone know that I did read each and every one of the emails as well, and I appreciate that our neighbors are so involved in taking the time to be here with us tonight and to write those letters. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I would just like to reiterate, thank everybody for coming, for the emails, for the comments. Thank you to the developer for making the presentation. Thank you everybody for keeping this very orderly and civil. This can be emotional for people who are going to be living it. Everybody was very respectful and very, you made my job easy. Thank you for that. Because I don't know how I would have handled it if you didn't. So with that, unless I'm missing something, I can now close the public hearing. Absolutely. All right, so we are now closing the public hearing. I am going to ask a question of the public. Is anybody sticking around for the meeting after this? Okay, so since a vast majority are not, why don't we take a 5-minute pause to let the people who want to leave, and that way we don't have to try to talk over the sound of everybody leaving. I can just pause, right?
I was going to suggest it. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, let's unpause the recording. There we go. Okay, so we just took a short pause to let the crowd clear out from the public hearing. We have closed the public hearing. We're now on to the next item of the agenda, which is public comment on anything else that's on the agenda. It actually technically could also relate to the public hearing, but I think we got all those comments out. So public comment period for anything on the agenda or anything else. Yes, ma'am. Same as before, when you come up, please just state your name, spell it if it's not painfully obvious how to spell it, and then you'll have 5 minutes. I will go live first and then to the Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Janice Corson, Courson. I live on Brookmead Drive in Ross Township. I am addressing the Pascal Place plan. As a result of a court order, I'm sorry.
Steve, I'm going to. Yeah.
Speakers, residents and taxpayers only.
Yes.
Ma'am, are you a resident of McCandless or
I
a
actually own
taxpayer?
property in McCandless.
You are a taxpayer, McKen-
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Since you identified yourself as being in Ross, we wanted to.
That's my primary residence. We
Okay.
own property.
But you're on.
Can you give us the
Okay.
McCandless address?
Pardon me?
Can we have the McCandless address for record?
605 Calais Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
As a result of a court order handed down by the Department of Education approximately 30 years ago, there is a large group of high-functioning young adults in the North Hills with special needs. They are the first group of people with special needs who have really been integrated into their schools. They're now integrated in the communities. They work here. This is their home. This is their community. The two problems that they have are a lack of housing and a lack of good transportation options. The Pascal Place plan attempts to ameliorate these, at least in some respects, by offering housing where they can socialize with their friends rather than living independently but isolated in other places. Also, as you know, the North Hills is not the lowest rent district, so for people on a limited budget, it's difficult for them to find places to live. The other thing is, most of them don't drive. They have to take public transportation or access to get to work. Pat has cut service over the years. Right next to Pascal Place is the senior citizen, which the name escapes me right now. There's a parking right there. So by going forward with this plan, you're not only providing housing, you're providing access to transportation, which these young people need in order to live the lives that, they want to live lives just like we do. They have jobs, they have social lives, they have to be able to access them. And I believe this is a step in that direction. And the first group of kids graduated 15 years ago, but every year there are more and more people graduating who have come through an integrated curriculum that gives them social skills and transportation skills. And it's a whole new world than it was 30, 40 years ago. And they want to be part of it. And so I asked your consideration for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Petro, Petro, 10480 Old Village Drive. I'm going to lighten this up a little bit because these have been important topics, so mine will be a little bit lighter than that. But you don't get a second chance at a first impression. So when people drive through our community, they're driving down Midnight Road, or they're going to look for a new home, or going to one of our commercial properties, and what they leave with is the impression that they see. Did they feel safe? What did they see? And so knowing that, I felt that litter all my life, because my dad he picked up litter, I pick up litter, and I've always felt that was an important thing that I could do. And it was tangible. It's not an intangible, but it's tangible to the what people see in your community. Do they want to live here? Do they feel good about being here? Do they feel welcome? And what I can do is I can join every public litter, pick up with John and so forth. And I can every time that I run North Park, I pick up all the litter in a parking lot, and that's all good. That's what I can do. What I can't do is I can't do anything with regard to the signage that goes along. So you go along and you see this sign on all the public property. This sign, that sign. We're a drive-through community, so there's signs. We see all these signs. And then also what I can't do is I can't affect anything on a occupied commercial property. I can't do anything about that. But there are ordinances that approach that. Signs is in the 907 ordinance, family. Litter or in commercial or residential is in the 705 ordinance, and I see lots and lots and lots of ordinances, and I see all these, but it wasn't clear to me in the commercial ordinance about litter, it just didn't make it clear to me. So I'd like to just say that it didn't say if you own commercial property, you will maintain it free of litter and you will do that on a regular basis or something like that. Residential seemed to be very clear to me. So I was just going to mention that. But secondly, with all the ordinances and the code enforcement officer that is entrusted to keep those up, I think that's a part-time position, what I'm hearing. And it seems like we have a lot of ordinances and there's a lot of, it's a big community, it's a large community. So I'm only here to suggest that we make that a full-time position so we have a chance at being successful at maintaining and keeping up with those ordinances and sort of giving the impression that this is a community that people want to move to, they want to live in, and they want to frequent and shop. And I think that's the impression I'm trying to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul, I live at 10552 Castle Lane. And I'm a parent of an adult with special needs, that the young lady was talking about. And he's 34 years old. He lives up on Duncan up by Mechanics Crossing at the clubhouse of North Hills there. He's been working for 17 years at the Giant Eagle at Pine Creek. And two things that my wife and I concern ourselves about as we age is, what are we going to do with our child? Do they have a place to live? Is it a place that's safe? Is it a place that he has access to in order to go to work and make money and be a productive member of society? We do a very good job in the school district with transitioning children with special needs to make them go into the community and to be productive citizens. This is just another part of that. He can live up in the Mechanics Crossing area, but it's full for support of my wife and I. The money he makes at Giant Eagle, the money he gets from Social Security, the money he gets from disability, it goes all to rent. And so without our support, it's very difficult. And as we age, it becomes a tremendous, tremendous mental burden. And I think Pascal Place is really an excellent place for not only my son, but for other children, adult children, that they'll be able to enjoy full life, full employment, and pay their taxes to the township of McCandless, the state of Pennsylvania, and the federal government. And that's what I would like you to consider, to think about as we move forward, that this is going to be a wonderful opportunity to be inclusive for all people within the community of McCandless, and we can really raise our heads high and say we have done something for our citizens of McCandless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Yes.
Did I miss something? My name is Ellen Wright, Old 9635 Old Coomer Road. And I'm also here to comment on Pascal Road. And I have some pictures to show you, if I could pass them out to you so you could see them.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at the picture that I've passed out to you, The center part of it in the stripe zone is essentially where Pine Creek is. The green portion are the wetlands, the floodplain. And the brown portion is also still in the floodplain, which is where the proposed building is for Pascal Place. It has less of a flood zone, but it still is in the flood zone for, it's still in the flood zone. If this building was a hospital, a nursing home, a jail, a prison, an assisted living facility, the daycare of any type, it would need special permission because it was in the flood zone. It's a garden apartment, but it has a special exemption because the residents will not be driving. But if you look at hospital, nursing home, jail, prison, assisted living, daycare of any type, those are all facilities where people do not drive. So to be in the flood zone, you need a special permission for people who aren't driving. And up above that, 913.18 stream buffer requirements at the Planning Commission. There was a modification for the stream buffer from the 25 feet to either, I believe, 16 feet. And that would put that buffer into the green zone of the floodplain. And that's part of a whole ordinance related to buffers and streams. So I pulled out that one piece. Now these are a little bit different because I didn't get them all stapled. That has front and back. Green. So it's tough looking for some place that's safe for adults, and yet the building is in a flood zone, which is inherently unsafe. And when that water comes, there's not anything that can be done. I mean, the water comes. There's been, that property has had high water throughout the spring. We've had more water this year. Floods are increasing. So that is my concern here related to today, is that the building is in the flood place. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the council members online, we have copies of what she handed out. So we'll, if you want a copy, we'll get it to you somehow.
Thank you.
Okay, more public comments. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to comment because I'm not a resident, but I am Carol Loisel, who's trying to build this building with my husband and my son Kevin right here.
Unfortunately,
Are we not allowed to comment?
our
How does that work?
policy requires you being a resident or taxpayer of the town.
Okay, any other public comment? I don't see any on Zoom. Is there any public? Anybody signed up?
One question. Excuse me, Mike Wetzel with Victor Wetzel Associates. Just a question in regard to your statement about property owners. They are property owners by contract of the property that they're speaking of. Is it as property owners? I just want to see if because they are potential owners and have it under contract.
Here's what I would say, from our public comment rules and regulations, as an equitable owner, that you don't own the property, you have a contract on the property, right? We've made deposits. It hasn't been, you're basically an equitable owner. You don't own the property. So I believe that you could have asked them to speak during the presentation if you would like.
Sure.
But not during the public comment.
Okay, I just wanted to get a clarification of that. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. We do have one person signed up on Zoom for comment. So we are looking up. Jarrett Sperling.
Okay, Jarrett, we have sent you a mic and camera request.
Okay, I can see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Jarrett, Jarett Sperling, Sperling. Own the property at 700 Blazer Drive, Sperling Funeral Home. My parents also own the property that is Pascal, going to be Pascal Place, hopefully in the future. Just wanted to comment to say that as the neighboring property, we fully support the project and the work that has gone into it. Was a resident up on Grubbs Road for years, and I'm very familiar with that. We've owned that property since my grandparents had property on Ingomar Road across the street. So we're familiar with the history of the property itself. There's been some comments made on floodplains and so forth, and I think the engineers have done a pretty good job of looking at that. Even during the Hurricane Ivan floods, we were down there, and where this building's going up on that upper portion of the property, none of that had ever flooded at any point in time. So I just wanted to make sure that was on record. And as neighbors, we fully support this project. We think that the work that they're doing to help not just their child, but other independent adults who have disabilities is a great thing right now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else on Zoom? That's it. Okay, that's it on Zoom. Last call for public comment from here. Okay. So we are on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is to move to approve the previous town council minutes. Are there any questions, changes? Councilmember Woods?
There's one change under the sections where the motion to appoint Lamar Williams to the TAC. The motion, President Zachary abstained at that vote. The motion says it passed 6-1 to 0. It should say 6-0 to 1.
Okay, we will make that change. Any other comments or changes to the meeting minutes from July 12th? If not, can I have a motion to approve those minutes as with the change Councilmember Woods just submitted? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next, we have reports of committees. So the report of the Administration and Finance Committee. Councilmember Tarl is not here. So Councilmember Clunin, can you do that? Or I can probably run through it because a lot of them are no meetings.
Yeah, a lot of them are no meetings. I think there's, all the information is in the packet, with the exception of the grant writing committee. I can say I'm still working on getting more information from independent grant writers, but I have conferred with our town officials, including Mr. Grimm and Ms. Greathouse, to be sure that applications for public funds are being made in a timely manner, and we're trying to access as much as is available to us in our community, because getting the public funds is going to be more in the realm of possibility than seeking from private sources, but we're not going to close any doors yet, and I hope to have a report soon on all of that combined information. Thank you.
Okay. Review of the monthly financial summary and dashboard report.
You received the report in your packet. I'm happy to go over anything that you might have a question on at this time. I also could take questions on the later item on the checklist.
Okay. Any questions at this time on the financial summary and dashboard report? Nope. Okay, so the authorities, no meetings for the Industrial Development Authority, no meeting for the North Hills Council of Governments. Does anyone have an update on the North Regional Chamber of Commerce? That is generally Councilmember Tarl, but he's not here. But I don't think there's any update for that.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. And report of Budget Committee.
Work is progressing.
Yes,
Okay,
the budget calendar has been issued. Staff's first deadline is mid-August. We will meet again with Budget Committee for Council within the next 2 weeks.
thank you. All right, next is the report of the Planning and Zoning Committee. President Zachary is not here, so Councilmember Spa.
The zoning report is in the packet. Councilmember Clunin, did you have anything you wanted to discuss related to Planning Commission?
No, not at this time. The reports are in there, and I do welcome council to take a look at the videos because a lot of information is shared at those planning meetings.
And I believe that the minutes of the last zoning board hearing were actually in last month's packet. We're in that, we're trying to change our calendar here, so there was no updated report in council's packet for this meeting. And I believe that brings us to the presentation on Pascal Place.
So I've got a PowerPoint over here that I will load up when Mr. Wetzel starts his presentation. Just going to give a quick introduction to this project because it's been at a couple different meetings at this point. It's made it through the Planning Commission. It's also been discussed at the Zoning Hearing Board, actually. So for some background overall on the project, as we've had a couple of public comments that have alluded to, this is kind of a unique one in terms of what you usually see for garden apartments. Language is important when we talk about these things. So one of the terms that we've been using as it's been moving through, and I've been discussing this project with the Loisels, is semi-independent adults. For the tenants that would be, you know, the family members as presented here. If there's a different term that some of the families prefer, you know, please understand that this is used respectfully and kind of just what we've been working off of at the Zoning Hearing Board and Planning Commission. That would be discussed in contrast with what we've been referring to as traditional tenants, which is just your run-of-the-mill, you know, renter of any sort of apartment unit. So essentially this project has been discussed as, you know, it would maybe be about half and half depending on, you know, exactly the mix of the families that would have the semi-independent adult tenants versus the traditional tenants. The assumption is that, you know, as these families age, they want to make sure that there's somewhere that their, you know, semi-independent adult children can live. It is not a skilled nursing facility. It is not a medical care facility. This is essentially meant to be an apartment complex where some of the traditional tenants would offset the costs to maintain for the semi-independent adult tenants. There were a couple variances that were granted at the Zoning Hearing Board regarding parking. Again, this is in reference to the fact that maybe about half, maybe a little more of the units would be occupied by the semi-independent adult tenants. They typically do not drive, so they would not require cars. I believe at last discussion, the assumption is that there would be one sort of, you know, property manager as a tenant. That may have changed, but you know, the assumption is that for the most part, these tenants are independent, but they may get a little extra assistance with coordinating rides or just, you know, some basic executive tasks. And so in light of that, the Zoning Hearing Board reduced the parking requirements to slightly over 1 car per unit. Mostly to serve what they expect to be the traditional tenants and also to shrink the spots to the more standard 9x18 dimensions. There was also a stipulation that if the tenant mix were to shift towards more traditional tenants, that there would need to be a parking re-review under the current ordinances in force. So that's kind of the context of this whole project here. I believe you all have the latest engineer's review letter from Gateway. We are still waiting on some of the floodplain data to go fully through our floodplain ordinance. But, you know, aside from that, for the most part, the engineering has been reviewed. That's just kind of the key piece that we need before we bring it for your consideration for a vote. So that said, Mr. Wetzel, I will cue up your PowerPoint if you're ready.
All right, we are ready. Thank you very much. So once again, my name is Mike Wetzel. I'm with the firm Victor Wetzel Associates. I'm here representing Cayman Properties. We're here tonight for Pascal Place, 22 units building for adult independent living, or as Ms. Husko said, semi-independent adult living associated with the plan. With me tonight is the president of Cayman Properties, Kevin Lasalle. So this is Kevin writing through here. He's going to be one of the hopefully future residents, but he is president of the organization. So he's very proud in regard to his position, and he's very excited in regard to the way this project has been moving forward in regard to the site. Also with us tonight is Carol and Keith Lasalle further down. So they hopefully we'll get them to talk briefly about some of their ideas in regard to the site and really what they would like to say. So with that, I'd like to move on with our presentation and first talk about the existing site of Pascal Place. Next slide, please. So as you see on the slide in front of you, this is a location map. The site is 2.4 acres in size and located in the C5 zoning district, where apartments are a permitted use within that zoning district. Next slide. So as we look at the existing conditions of the site in this area along there, once again, 2.4 acres in size. And what we have in regard to the site area, the red is the actual property boundary. The site has frontage along Blazer Drive, which is on the bottom of the screen. Top of the screen, it takes you up to the intersection of Ingomar Road. And then further down the lower left is McCandless Drive. Off to the right is really where the new Ashton Commons apartment complex or senior living is being constructed along Blazer Drive within this plan. So, and as presented, the site is a very unique site in regard to its location, but a very attractive site just because of its existing conditions. As you can see in the top portion of the site, that's Pine Creek that flows through the site. And then we have the first set of dashed areas, which is the floodway associated with the overall property area. The area that's in yellow is the floodplain location. And then kind of in the middle right-hand side of the site is existing wetlands. A full environmental report was submitted with the initial calculations. So you can kind of just see above Blazer Drive section, that area is really where we have about a 1 acre development parcel for this overall site to be able to construct this apartment building within the site. So go ahead to the next slide. So as we said, this is going to be a 22 unit apartment building for adult independent living residences through here. The top area is the front elevation that faces Blazer Drive. It's a 3-story building with it, the front share. The materials will be a stone frontage with the board and batten siding associated with it. Varied mix of roof lines to give it a little bit of character. You can see then the lower part of the side is the side elevation of the building. Now, as you can see, because of where we are in regard to the floodway and grading and wetlands associated with the site, we really only have 3 floors. So you can see the first floor, but even though in the back of the building, the back building foundation drops down, there will be no basement elevation associated with that. It's really acted more as a retaining wall or an exposed wall that limits grading on the site. So you're not filling more into the floodplain area or getting closer to the floodway. So we're using that as a wall to help protect the existing natural resources that exist within the woods. And as you've driven by, most of the site is woodland. So we're really looking to only disturb about 1 acre of the overall site and leave the remaining in its natural sense within the site area. Next slide. So when you look at the land development plan, we have 2 access points along Blazer Drive. There are 28 parking spaces associated with the overall plan. Look at it along the right of way of Blazer Drive, as well as closer to the building on each side. There will be a sidewalk located along the entire frontage of Blazer Drive through that area. There'll be also landscaping associated with not only the building, but some of the streetscape work within the area, within the site. As you can kind of see through the darker green areas, those are existing trees that will remain. So we'll be able to have a lot of natural tree growth located next to the building. In the back of the building, you'll see 2 circles of trees. That is actually a rear deck area. There'll be a gathering room that will be part of the building so that they can go to and enjoy each other's company, but also be able to use that deck area to look over the valley section. That is really where our one modification request is being asked for, is to allow that deck to be within 19 feet of the wetlands. There's a requirement to be 25 feet. Really, all we're doing is having an deck over this particular area. In regard to this modification, we'll get into a little bit more detail of the site. There'll also be sidewalks associated with the overall property area. That's okay. Go ahead, you can go ahead and move on with the site. So this is our site composite. When we look at the overall site and we look at all the environmental constraints on the site, we'll have absolutely no disturbance of the floodway, no disturbance of Pine Creek. Our building area and parking lot is located in majority of what's called that clear area. But you can see part of the building area and parking lot is located in the floodplain. Floodplain development is permitted when you have an engineering study, and we've had submitted a full, it's called a HEC-RAS study as part of the submittal that looks at the overall site in regard to actually adding some fill for the building and the parking lot, and if it affects any upstream or downstream properties. So when we look at the site, the actual floodplain elevation is 988. The requirement is you need to be 1.5 feet above the floodplain elevation. We're taking this under 2 considerations. One is the FEMA floodway maps associated with that. But because of where the site is, a more detailed engineering study that is required and was submitted to the town in regard to, as I said, the HEC-RAS study. So there's 2 forms of engineering studies that are looked at to actually determine the floodplain elevation. So once again, the floodplain elevation requirement is 988. Our building elevation will be 2 feet higher at 990. So we'll be located outside the floodplain and meets all the requirements of FEMA in regard to that requirement. So really what we're doing is looking to minimize disturbance on the site. That's why we're doing the rear wall as it is, to allow that less disturbance and less fill, but also acts as a wall for the overall site. Go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is the wetland setback modification. It's really located there in the blue circle associated with the overall site. If we go to the next slide. The area really is just for the deck in itself, not at all for the building. The deck is elevated off the ground. Will be the required posts that are going to be needed to support the deck. But because of that deck is a structure, it is located 19 feet from the wetland area. So we were asking a modification in regard to the section for the 25-foot setback requirement off of the wetland. The Planning Commission, when they reviewed it earlier this month, recommended by a 4-0 vote for the modification of the plan. Next slide, please. So once again, we're really here for approval of the land development plan for Pascal Place, 22-unit apartment. I do want to ask Carol if she wants to come up to just speak just a little bit about her feelings in regard to and her use of the proposed use within the site, and maybe introduce some of the potential residents that would be here at Pascal Place. Carol, if you want to just say a few words.
Thank you very much for letting me speak as part of this. RJ already did such a great job talking about what our project is, and I really appreciate that. I wasn't sure that was going to be done, so that's why I wanted to speak earlier. We've been at this project for a long time. I think it's been 3 years now that we've been since we started this. And you might wonder, why are we going after this horrible lot, really? I mean, it's almost 3 acres and we can only use less than an acre of it. We started all this process, and Janice, who spoke earlier, and I and another mother were asked by McCandless Township to come to a meeting about all the pathways that you were proposing throughout McCandless and ending in your crown jewel of North Park. And when McCandless was looking for people to give their input to these pathways and these trails, they actually asked the Woodlands Foundation to see if anybody they knew anybody that had come to the Woodlands, any adult with some special needs who may live, work, or play in McCandless and could get some input to these trails. And so Kevin, he's a kindergarten aide at Marshall Elementary School. Emily works in Giant Eagle, and the other young woman works at Giant Eagle too. And there we were with all these other people, and we just couldn't believe McCandless even cared what we thought about these trails. And at that meeting, it's like Janice overheard somebody talking about McCandless Square potentially going in, and a lot of our we call them kids, but we know they're adults. Kevin volunteered at St. Barnabas for years, and would go in there for a couple hours a day and, you know, visit with those residents. And he didn't care if he heard the same story every single time, or looked at the same photo album 100 times, watched the same movie every time. I mean, it's just a perfect coupling of our guys and senior citizens. And so we saw that going in, and then the whole retail space, and we thought, wow, this is really incredible. This could be the spot, because we had parents have been meeting for about 15 years trying to find a place for an apartment building for our guys. So anyway, that's when we learned about this little lot next door. And while it has a whole lot of problems, we seem to be getting over them all. And we really appreciate so much Stephen, Victor, and now Mike, and everybody's been helping us so much on all the engineering studies. It's just taking so long, but we really believe that this is where God wants us to be. So we're really excited about it, and the project next door. Heck, when Kevin Doherty got up and talked about McCandless Square, he was an old neighbor of ours. And we couldn't believe that was him when he got up and talked about McCandless Square. And the first question he asked when he came out of the meeting was, "How's Kevin doing?" We're like, wow, funny you should ask that. I mean, it just all seems so divinely inspired, but we are just really excited about this prospect. McCandless has been phenomenal from the very beginning, from this whole trail thing, the caring that we thought about it. And then certainly RJ has been amazing for us, and every committee that we just really feel like McCandless is the place to do this. In Pennsylvania is very antiquated in residential facilities for people with some special needs. Pennsylvania just doesn't do it. And McCandless has just embraced us, and we're just excited to get going with this. All of our tenants will be already work. In fact, most of them already live in an apartment of their own somewhere, but what they're missing is the socialization. So this building is going to be gorgeous. We actually modeled it after a building in the South Side called the Bricks, where Kevin and his sister Bridget lived for a year. And just a great place. And it's going to have lots of socialization. We're going to have a superintendent living in the building that will be there in case anything goes wrong. But every one of our tenants is completely independent. Jason takes the bus. Jason rides the bus, 2 buses to town from where he lives. Emily works at Giant Eagle, and she lives in an apartment already herself. Shane, Keith and Susan's son, he already mentioned, lives in an apartment by himself, works at Giant Eagle. So these guys are very independent, just really, really excited to live independently. And we parents are excited to have them in a safe place for life. This is going to be a place for life. This isn't going to be a place they rent for a year. They're going to live here for life. So we just thank you so much for hearing us, and hopefully you'll be voting in favor for us so we can finally get that shovel in the dirt. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else can say anything or would want to say anything. Parents.
Well, thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
And as I said, as we wrap up, we're looking for land development approval for the proposed Pascal Place. As you know, Cayman Properties and our president, Kevin, is really looking forward to, hopefully getting the recommend or approval in regard to the land development plans, and look forward to answering any questions that the board might have at this time. Thank you.
Questions from any board members? Bless you, whoever sneezed. Oh.
If I could just say one thing.
Sorry.
No, please. I'm Keith Lasalle, same spelling.
But why don't you come up to the mic to make sure everyone can hear you?
Keith Loiselle, Loiselle. And I just wanted to say that as Mike pointed out, that deck is the only area that infringes on that wetland. And that actually, in talking with the architect, we can flatten that or sort of bring it closer to the building and widen it. But it was approved already, and it's only, unlike what the woman said earlier, it's a 7 feet, a 6 feet variance from the edge of the wetlands to that. And I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out here. I wanted to restate what Carol said, that we've been really gratified to have worked with all the various committees in McCandless, and it's been very heartwarming for us to be able to do that as we go through this. We have family here, we have friends here, as Carol said. I just wanted to point out Larry and Janet, they're Kevin's uncle and aunt. And Larry, from the time Kevin was about 2, that's the origin of the name Cayman, right? So Larry started calling Kevin Cayman, and it has stuck for 31 years. And we've all adopted that name, and it only seemed fitting that we assign at least the property to that. And but I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, and I know we're all passionate about this for our children and our friends. We've known all of these folks for many years as we've grown up together, and but I again just can't be more grateful for the reception that we've gotten from most here in the township, and we appreciate that very deeply, and we hope that we can kind of continue and bring the project to its completion here pretty soon. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Keith. And once again, we're glad to answer any questions that the council members might have here tonight in regard to Pascal Place. Thank you.
Questions at this time? Councilmember Woods?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say, I love the concept of what this is, and I'm really excited that this is something that we get the opportunity to see in the campus. I have a couple of questions. Just, there seemed to be on the report from June 29th, some unfinished items, and I just wanted to see how that was coming along.
We've made a full re-engineering submittal and response letter
Okay.
To the municipality, waiting for the final reviews from Gateway Engineers. But once again, full response letters from the June 29th Gateway letter has been submitted, as well as along with the necessary engineering reports. So,
And then my second question is the deck. Is there? You mentioned that you could change the design of it. Is it better suited to your needs in the shape that it's in? Or
yeah, we prefer to keep it as it's shown there in the site plan. Once again, it's a 6-foot modification, but once again, we're really only having 2 posts, 2 to 3 posts maximum. They're going to be really located within that 25-foot setback. The deck in itself is above ground.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? Councilmember Stormwater.
Okay, I just wanted to actually make sure I understood the deck issue. I mean, I think I do, but so either whether or not council in the future would approve the deck as it is, which is a setback modification, or you could change it. But I just want to make certain that all the modification itself is not to act, is only to reduce the 25-foot setback. It isn't actually, those posts are not actually going into the wetland.
Correct. The posts aren't going into the wetlands.
Okay,
at all.
I just want to
Yeah,
make sure that
those posts are 19 feet away from the wetlands.
Okay.
So because the deck is a structure, so the technical word structure,
Right. Sure.
Even though it's above ground, it still is measured by the distance off of the wetland.
Right. I just want to make sure that I understood the nuance there.
Right.
The other question I had was that I understand and by the way, I applaud the let's not disturb more than we have to disturb in a beautiful, ecologically important area. So the fact that it's a smaller parking lot with fewer parking stalls for me is certainly not an issue, except for the question is, if in the future the use changes and it would require more intensive parking, given your constraints on that site, in terms of the area you're building in, would there be an area to actually add additional parking if you needed to? Or a new owner in the future, or?
There could be additional parking added, once again, left of the building where they would show two trees associated with it. Also, at the end of the parking area closest to Blazer Drive could be one space on the either side. But I think as written by the zoning hearing board, if it gets to that use state, we need to come back with a site plan that would conform to the requirement.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. And not to belabor it, but I also applaud the work that you're doing. This is a very unique and interesting and well thought out plan as far as I can see so far.
Any other questions from council? I had one. What was Kevin's last name again?
What you like? You want to? Lasalle, Kevin Lasalle.
Lasalle?
Yes.
I just wanted it in the record so that he is forever immortalized in the town of McCandless minutes as the president of Cayman Properties. So you will, people looking back on the minutes in years from now, your name will be here as president. No further questions from me, though. Last call for anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Just a question just in regard to the next decision. Will this go to the next meeting in August, or will there be a vote in regard to the land development plan?
I don't think we'll be taking a vote tonight. My guess would be 2 meetings out.
Yeah, we received the resubmittal information with, the additional floodplain and FEMA study pretty recently. So that would put us about the August 23rd meeting that we should have all the reviews back from Gateway.
Okay, so don't hold us to that,
To confirm that.
but that's the target.
Yes, thank you
So,
very much.
You've had quite the up and down night here.
It's something we deal with on a weekly level.
Thank you very much. Okay, so next up, report of the Recreation Committee. So Councilmember Clunin, I'll start with you on that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Just to let you know some upcoming events from the Activities Committee, to make everyone aware. We're scheduling August 14th, the tennis clinic. And that is going to be done with the work of our junior council person, Raj Gind. Look for that information. And also the folks working on recreation in the town have been working very hard on the community day. So I'll kind of jump to that if I may. Just to remind everyone, the information, the registration is up and available for the town trot, which will occur on Saturday, September 11th at 9 a.m. It will be off of Cumberland Road on the grounds of McKnight Elementary, Carson and NAI, and we are thanking North Allegheny School District for their cooperation in getting this event together. In addition to the town trot, we will also have a car cruise, and the evening will be wrapped up here at Town Hall with a veterans and first responder recognition and everyone's favorite fireworks. And if you, Mr. Smith, would like to share what the Heritage Center has been working on as well.
Yep, the information from the meeting is in your packet. Unfortunately, it froze on my computer, so I had to miss the last meeting because of a last minute work meeting. But the information is all in your packet, and I can try to answer any questions you have, if anybody has any. And if not,
If I could just say one more thing, I'm sorry to interrupt. We still do have a place on the Activity Advisory Committee for another representative from our community. So taking ongoing applications for that position, and folks are always welcome to join us at our meetings to find out what we do, or to send me an email or a phone call, and I'd be happy to talk with you more. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you.
should have reshuffled the agenda to get that before everybody left from the public hearing. Okay, so that takes us through everything. Community Day Subcommittee. Any further update on it?
Just as we mentioned, we are September 11th, so follow the town website for registration for the race and for upcoming additional information. And we look forward to seeing everybody.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any other questions or comments from the recreation committee? Nope. All right. Next agenda item, President of Council's report and correspondence. I have nothing.
Nothing's been passed on to me.
Okay, and we have no other report passed on. It was mentioned in the public hearing, I guess, because of correspondence. We got all the correspondence relating to the public hearing, which we have been tracking. So, all right, town managers report, Mr. Grimm.
You all have received a copy of my report, and since this meeting has run so long, I will not burden you with any highlights. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Grimm? No. Town attorney's report.
Submitted my report. Happy to answer any questions, although most questions should probably be asked in executive session. So with that, that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Nope. All right, so now on to old business. So the first item under old business relates back to chicken ordinances. So does anybody want to make a motion? This is the same substance of the motion that was tabled from the last meeting with a little bit different though, so. Councilmember Woods.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1515, an ordinance of the town of McCandless, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the codified ordinances of the town of McCandless at Part 7, General Offenses Code, to regulate the keeping of chickens with the exception of section 2E, which I would like to remove from the ordinance. And if I could just make a comment about that quickly before we get too far. Section 2E is the section that says that all chickens shall be afforded veterinary care and requires that they be vaccinated against infectious diseases. And while I think that the desire there is in the best interest of the chickens, the feasibility of actually vaccinating a small flock of chickens is not really possible. These vaccines have to be given either in ovo before the eggs are hatched or when the chicks are 1 to 2 days old. But they arrive at the stores where you purchase them when they're 1 to 2 days old. So they probably wouldn't make it back to someone's home in that time frame. The owner of the chickens would have to vaccinate the chicks themselves. There'd be no record of that for us to check if this had even happened. And the diseases that we're talking about vaccinating against, particularly Marek's disease, aren't transferable to humans. So there's no real concern to public health.
Okay, so we have a motion and we can discuss more, but do we have a second to the motion? To approve the ordinance with the exception of section 2E. I'm sorry, who was that? Okay, Councilmember Schweiger seconds. So further discussion. RJ, anything you want to speak to on it in particular?
I have no issue with removing the vaccination provision. I think it would definitely be a challenge to track from an administrative perspective. Just to make sure that we're clear, when we're looking at section 2E, it includes the sentence, all chickens shall be afforded veterinary care if they are known or suspected to be sick or injured. Would that remain in the motion?
No, I would take that out as well. There are very few veterinarians who tend to livestock, particularly in this area. So I think we're setting up an impossibility for these owners.
I have no objection to that.
Okay. For me, it sounds good. Any further discussion from anybody? All right, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance with the exception of section 2E relating to veterinary care. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay, one nay. So should I go to a roll call vote? So roll call vote. Ready?
Yep. Ward 2,
Nay.
Ward 4,
Yay.
Ward 5,
Yay.
Ward 6,
Aye.
Ward 7,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. All right. On to the next item of old business. This is a motion to adopt an ordinance. This relates to the tax credit, the real estate tax credit for our volunteer firefighters.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Motion to adopt ordinance number 1516, an ordinance of the town of McCandless, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, authorizing local real estate tax credits for volunteer members of volunteer fire companies under the Volunteer Service Credit Program.
have
Second.
a second? Yep. Okay, Councilmember Clune, second. Okay, any discussion? Again, this was to extend the tax credit to volunteer firefighters who might not have the income for an income tax credit because they're retired or for any other reason, and instead get a real estate tax credit. So any further questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, on to new business. All right. First item is the motion to approve the checklisting. First, anybody have any questions on the checklist, which I think we looked at last meeting? All right, can I get a motion to approve it? Councilmember Spanholz?
I move to approve checklisting number 6 dated June 1, 2021 to June 30, 2021, totaling $1,022,496.27 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Right, can I have a second? Second, Councilmember Woods. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next one is a motion to approve the fee schedule. RJ, any comment on this before I ask for the motion?
This was what was discussed as option 2 in the previous council meeting regarding a $50 zoning permit fee for the review of the chicken coop and run. That would also include if somebody needed to add a screening fence for the structure. That would be no additional charge included in that review rather than a separate fence permit.
Okay, and so this is the one-time $50 fee.
That's correct.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I'll read it.
Okay, Councilmember Schweiger.
Motion to approve resolution number 12, establishing a master resolution to govern various town fees and charges.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Woods, second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, now we have an appointment to the Environmental Advisory Committee. I'm going to pass it on to Councilmember Spanholz.
Thank you, President Pro Tem.
You could just call me president.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Tony Kurzman to the Environmental Advisory Committee for a term to expire August 31st, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Woods seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Interviews are available for council members to look at. in our SharePoint, whatever it's called folder. Okay, no further discussion. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of appointing Tony Kurzman to the Environmental Advisory Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And though it's not on the agenda, we received word too late to have it on the printed agenda. Councilmember Sponholz, I'll hand that to you as well.
Sure. Yeah, we just learned that unfortunately, because of job and family commitments, that one of our EAC members had to resign. He gave his written resignation to us, which I've passed on to the town. And if council is willing, I understand from our town attorney that you know, we could proceed. I would like to proceed with a motion to accept that resignation so that we can move quickly to fill this position, because we had some really good applicants this last time, and I don't want them to lose interest.
Okay.
So does any, I mean, kind of a thumbs up or something from council members if they're in agreement to go ahead and accept the resignation, and then I'll.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Ishmael Kwakma from the Environmental Advisory Committee.
A second.
Okay, Councilmember Woods seconded. Because this item was not on the agenda beforehand, I will open it up for public comment. If anybody has any public comment relating specifically to this item. Nope. Okay. Then we have a motion and a second to accept Mr. Kwaka's resignation from the Environmental Advisory Committee. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next up, RJ's got a few more hits here. So RJ, you want to take we're going to have a motion for the McGann plan of lots.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it moving here. So essentially, we have a couple different simple subdivisions up here. The first one is the McGann plan of lots, not so simple technically on paper because this lot is split between Hampton Township and McCandless. Don't see that too often. So essentially, because the lot has pieces, you know, in both of the municipalities, even though the applicants intend to build their home, I believe, on the Hampton side and take access from Andrews Drive, which is a Hampton road, not McCandless, we still have to be involved in the approval process. At this point, there are just a couple little cleanup things related to, you know, normal things that happen when you subdivide and build one new home, related to updating, you know, checking the boxes for DEP sewer planning module. That's a very, you know, informal administrative thing, at least from our perspective on this one. You know, other than that, they're ready for your consideration. I do have Mr. McGann here and their surveyor on Zoom if anyone has any questions particular for them.
Okay, so does anybody, even before we make the motion, anybody have any questions for them? We can also ask them after we make the motion as well, but any questions? Okay, anybody want to make the motion? Councilmember Woods.
I move to approve the McGann plan of lots, simple subdivision application located at 4839 Andrews Drive, block lot 1074-C-273, contingent upon the plan also receiving approval from Hampton Township.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, Councilmember Sponholz. Okay, any further discussion on the matter? Any questions for the folks we have online for it? Anything at all? Does not look like it. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Did he raise his hand?
He did raise his hand. The vote still came out 5-0, but your vote is appreciated. So motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next, RJ, all still in your court with the Chesmar consolidation plan.
Yes, so this one is even simpler of a subdivision. This is technically a lot consolidation application. This is essentially, you all have heard me mention bingo lots. Apparently there were skinny little lots that were given out as bingo prizes once upon a time in various places in Allegheny County. There are quite a few residents who, built their home on them as intended. You could kind of get a bunch of them and compose your home, from these various bingo lots. And many times when they go to add an accessory structure, they discover, oh, my single property is actually 3 tiny little parcels that my house is built on top of. So Mr. Chesmar is here. If you have any particular questions for him, this has received a clean engineering review letter and is ready to go for your consideration. It will just simply unify his property parcels into one.
Did you have to win bingo 3 times to get 3 different bingo lots?
I wasn't there, so perhaps there was a bundle at some point.
You won the bonus, right?
That was the 4 corners game.
Okay, so do I have a motion relating to the Chesmar consolidation plan from anyone? Councilmember Woods. I feel like we've done this before.
Talking a lot tonight. I move to approve the lot consolidation application known as the Chesmar Consolidation Plan located at 8716 Roosevelt Boulevard, block lots 714-J-129 and 133.
Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Clunin got it first. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the Chesmar consolidation plan? We have a motion to approve it. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. If I may ask the question, what is the next phase I need to do to get back over?
Yeah, so you can give us a call. You can give the building department a call tomorrow. There are a couple things that you need to do just to get the plan recorded officially down at the county, but we can walk you through what the next steps are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I call you.
Give the building department a call tomorrow. I'll be available on Wednesday to walk you through that.
Call tomorrow or Wednesday.
Talk to Melinda tomorrow. Talk to me on Wednesday.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Is that Jeff?
You mean the building inspector? Yeah, he works with Melinda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay to talk to him.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's okay.
I'll tell him this was passed and then I'll call you on Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you. You just gave my wife a great birthday gift.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda, Vision Holdings, RJ again.
All right, we've got a couple people in the audience for this one if you have any questions. But essentially, although typically we do full presentations for these preliminary final land development applications, this one was almost more of a formality. Essentially, the building at 8301 Perry Highway, known to some as the photography studio, if that helps you place it. I notice that it often does. They are doing a parking lot renovation and expanding it a bit. There's no real, commercial building impacts with this land development application. However, to get the parking that the applicant desired to move his optometry, administrative, and some practice space into this property, he needed to add some parking. Our parking requirements on the books are 10 by 18 spaces. There wasn't enough room essentially on this lot to fit them with the standard size. However, our code gives you the option to, if you double stripe the parking spots, to do a 9.5 foot wide spot. However, those configurations have to be approved by town council. So there's no real way to do that other than bringing it through, essentially the full process. I believe as a part of this, they will be adding some buffering in the back, a retaining wall, but again, buffered according to the code. And the applicant has agreed to extend the sidewalk on West Sandal Avenue along the side there all the way up to the property line. So we're actually getting some public benefit out of this, as well as some increased parking, that is a plus to the building overall. I don't know if the applicant has anything that he wants to come up and add.
Yeah, I'm Tom Swisher with Farragut Party Gray, representing Dr. Hewitt, the applicant. The only thing I would address and say is that 5 comments we received on the last letter last week from the engineer. There's only 2 real items that are outstanding, which are the developers agreement and the operation and maintenance agreement. And we're working with RJ at the current moment, working those out.
Yeah, those are typical contingency items that are usually included on these.
Okay. Okay, so anybody have any questions? Oh, did somebody say something there? Oh, okay. Anybody have any questions or discussion before I solicit a motion? Okay, then why don't I solicit a motion? Who wants to read this 6 lines of text? Councilmember Stormwater.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary final land development application submitted by 2020 Vision Holdings for the purpose of renovating and expanding the parking lot at 8301 Perry Highway, block lot 611-C-269, contingent upon the applicant addressing the remaining administrative comments in the town engineer's review letter dated July 20, 2021.
Do I have a second? Councilmember Schweiger. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the Vision Holdings plan. Sure. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. I've been wondering who the guy in the back with the only beard better than me was. So, on to the last item. So this is with playground structure. Bob, I think, are you going to handle this one, or is this also RJ?
No, I'm gonna handle this one. Give RJ the break. This is an item that was included in the 2021 budget to replace the playground structure at the Lorraine Rogers soccer field. So what we've done is we secured pricing from 3 different vendors who all have contracts through the state co-stars program. General Recreation provided us with the most recreation equipment for the price. So the combination of price and equipment quality fell to General Recreation for $70,000. That includes the price of the equipment itself and installation. And we will be in a position to be able to fill that entire space with some great recreational items for the kids. And this also creates a safe surface for the playground to be in, as opposed to the grass that had been there.
So like that rubbery kind of.
This is actually wood engineered mulch, which is acceptable safety.
Maybe you said it, but I missed it. What did we have in the budget?
We had $70,000
Oh, it's-
in the budget, so they're using every dollar of it. But it's we're also getting more
than we
equipment
expected.
than we wanted, we're expecting.
Any other questions for Bob on this? Anyone want to make a motion? All right, Councilmember Clunin.
I move to approve the purchase of playground structure from General Recreation Incorporated in the amount of $70,000 through CoStar's contract number 14.
Second. Councilmember Schweiger, second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve it. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Just trying to figure out how to stretch this out longer so that my reign as president doesn't end yet. So if I never call for a motion to adjourn, we just go forever, right? All right, so that brings us to adjournment. Who here wants to end my my term as president pro tem.
I'll make that motion.
That was a little too quick, Councilmember Woods.
Second.
At least wait for her to make the motion before you second it. Okay, Councilmember Woods moves to adjourn. Councilmember Sponholz second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, guys. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for making this pretty easy on me. Have a good night.
David, take a night.